The GUR unit Ghost has entered Crimea. 3 boats were sunk and a plane destroyed. A big win for the AFU in Zaporizhzhia. They destroyed a $60 million Kasta radar. An attack on the FSB building in Crimea. Dozens of officers are missing in action. Aksyonov is being summoned to see Putin. Shock. In the next 5 days, Russia is planning a nuclear strike on Ukraine. The targets are Parliament, the General Staff, and Zelensky's bunker. There will be a strike on the parade. The Kremlin broke the truce and hit a nursery in Sumy. There are fatalities. Military cadets are being sent to protect Russian oil refineries from drone attacks. An historic day. Iran and the US have made a deal. This is the end of the war. Zelensky won over Putin's allies, the Caucasus without Russia. Pashinyan and Aliyev are turning from Russia and looking toward Europe. A stab in the back as Fico flatly refused to take part in Putin's parade. Luhansk is drowning in sewage while local authorities plan to mine gold in the so-called LPR. Scandal as Austria kicks out Russian spies who were using diplomatic status as cover. Greetings, I'm Yulia Kokan, and here is the main news right now. But first, please like this video and subscribe to our channel so we don't lose touch on the vastness of YouTube. A brilliant liquidation special operation by the GUR. The occupiers lost a B-12 plane, 3 boats, and a supply ship. All this was destroyed by the GUR Ghosts unit on the Crimean Peninsula. See for yourselves. The FSB is on fire. 6 Ukrainian UAVs hit the so-called Federal Security Service building in Armyansk just before midnight. According to OSINT sources, many military personnel and occupiers linked to Russian intelligence live nearby. Preliminary reports say 5 were killed and a dozen wounded after the strike. Along with the strike on Armyansk, which the occupiers are hiding, there was another on Jankoy. An occupation official confirmed the success of the attack on his social media. True, but without any details. So the Gauleiter of Crimea, Aksyonov, decided to keep quiet about Armyansk, but he did provide information on Jankoy. Social media reports that on the night of May 6th, things were also heating up in the occupied Luhansk region.
Zelensky's fucking truce, my ass. That's how it is.
And more good news. The occupiers lost another Mi-8 military helicopter along with its crew. Social media reports suggest this happened during an attempt to repel a drone raid in Crimea. The military bloggers are, of course, mourning this and writing the traditional "May the earth be like heaven" warriors. And what about us? We, of course, are rejoicing and thanking our defense forces for their excellent work. Reading the comments on previous episodes, I see that many of you are watching from Europe, Kazakhstan, Moldova, and even the United States. We Ukrainians are grateful for your support and proud to have such sensible viewers. Let us know in the comments of this episode which country you're watching from and if people there support our fight against the evil empire. I always enjoy reading your comments, but for now, let's move on to the most interesting news. Now, this is news. Just listen to this. Russian dictator Putin is conducting nuclear tests right before the parade in Moscow. Militarny is reporting on this. Test strikes with missiles capable of carrying nuclear warheads are being conducted at the Kura test site in the Ust-Kamchatsky district. It's reported that access for people has been restricted there, and the presence or movement of any vehicles is prohibited from May 6th to May 10th inclusive.
The Kura test site in Kamchatka is a testing ground for the space forces of the Russian Aerospace Forces, located in a swampy area on the Ozernaya River, 500 kilometers north of Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky. It is used for testing, specifically for practicing hitting targets with missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead. In recent years, Russia has been using the site to test intercontinental missiles capable of carrying a nuclear warhead.
And continuing with the topic of nuclear exercises, the Russians are considering a nuclear strike on Ukraine with a high number of casualties. A strike on the Verkhovna Rada, the president's bunker, and the General Staff building is also possible these days. This is currently being actively discussed by Russian military bloggers. Media reports state that Russia has the world's largest stockpile of tactical nuclear weapons, numbering about 1,500 to 2,000 units. Even Standard, Iskander, Kalibr, and Kinzhal missiles, which Russia constantly uses to strike Ukraine, can carry a nuclear warhead. The popular Ukrainian military analytical telegram channel E-Radar, which tracks the air situation in real time, warns of threats of missile strikes and drone attacks, reporting that Russia plans to launch a massive missile strike immediately after May 9th.
According to the information received, the enemy is planning a massive missile attack on the territory of Ukraine in the period from May 10th to 12th, probably in addition to ballistic missiles and attack UAVs, strategic aviation boards, Tu-95MS, Tu-160, Tu-22M3, and MiG-31K will be involved in the strike. The main goal is the city of Kyiv and the Kyiv region.
What do you think? Are all these exercises just more intimidation or not? Write your thoughts in the comments. With trembling knees, the Kremlin continues to prepare for the parade. Yesterday, footage even appeared from the rehearsal of the Victory Mania holiday on Red Square. But along with this, mobile fire groups are already being deployed across Moscow. Add to this the armed henchmen on the Kremlin towers and a bunch of air defense systems brought to Moscow from all over Russia. And this is despite the fact that since 2025, the Kremlin has already set up over 40 additional air defense towers in Moscow and elsewhere.
According to satellite imagery, in 2025, an additional 43 towers with anti-aircraft missile and gun systems Pantsir-1 were installed near the city. This concerns the continued reconstruction of the Soviet small air defense ring with a radius of 50 kilometers, which was not used during the Cold War. The positions are located along the Central Ring Road and its parallel minor concrete road. The systems are also being transferred from other regions, which indicates the authorities' focus specifically on the defense of Moscow.
And along with this, the Kremlin continues to dream of a truce on May 8th and 9th. The other day we reported that Putin's people are discussing this with the states. But Russia has never officially approached Ukraine with such a proposal. Instead, as it turned out, others have made the request on Russia's behalf. The Telegram channel Ukraine Context writes that informal requests were received by the office of the president from some embassies to agree to the truce requested by Putin.
The Russian side, in turn, also through unofficial channels, proposed to carry out a prisoner exchange on the eve of May 9th in exchange for Ukraine's agreement not to strike their parade.
Well, an exchange is certainly a good thing. The trouble is that Russia cannot be trusted. I wonder what those embassies that approached the office of the president are counting on. And which countries' embassies do you think they were? But be that as it may, there will definitely be no truce. After all, Zelensky recently offered an alternative and announced a ceasefire from May 6th. However, the Kremlin obviously did not accept the offer and shelled Ukrainian cities all night. Moreover, Russia attacked a kindergarten in Sumy. The enemy directed 2 drones at a kindergarten building. Fortunately, there were no children there. However, a female security guard was killed. At least 2 people are known to have been injured. But that's not the end of the occupiers' cynicism. While clearing the aftermath of the attack on Sumy, the Russians attacked the city again. Rescuers and all relevant services were forced to interrupt their work. Russia is a terrorist state, a festering sore. Like if you agree. And now to the news from the front. The enemy advanced near Pishchain and in Rudinsky. This is reported by deep state analysts. And a bit of humor, as they say, to come at Putin's call thousands of miles to a foreign land, only to be wasted in an outhouse. What a stupid death. The Russian soul cannot be understood by reason. Well then, next for your attention, real footage from drone operators of the 1st Separate Assault Regiment, the Zaporizhzhia direction of the front. Enjoy. But that's not all. In addition, from May 3rd to 5th, drone system forces hit several important enemy targets. It's reported that the first separate center hit a Kasta radar worth approximately $60 million in the Zaporizhzhia region. Additionally, a temporary personnel deployment point and a locomotive in the Luhansk region were hit, as well as an enemy logistics warehouse in Donetsk. And fighters of the 414th Brigade, Magyar's Birds, hit a field artillery depot, logistics warehouses, and a temporary personnel deployment point in the Luhansk region. Separately, an ammunition depot in the Donetsk region was hit. I never tire of admiring the courage and heroism of Ukrainian warriors. They hold the front and resist a massive horde that significantly outnumbers them. Therefore, I urge you to support the armed forces of Ukraine. And if you can't do it financially, write them words of support in the comments. I know they are watching us. Cadets of Russian military universities are being trained to defend oil depots from UAVs and drones. This is reported by agents of the Atesh partisan movement among cadets of the Penza Artillery Institute. According to them, cadets from this institution are planned to be recruited into mobile groups to guard oil depots and fuel facilities on Russian territory. It's obvious that the Russian air defense system cannot cope with the increasing strikes. So the command is forced to plug the gaps with those who haven't reached the front yet. More loud statements from Donald Trump. This time he announced agreements with Iran and threatened new large-scale strikes if they refuse to comply. But first things first. The American president says the Strait of Hormuz could be reopened to all countries, including Iran, if Tehran agrees to abide by the reached agreements. Meanwhile, Trump warned that in case of refusal, the US will resume strikes on Iran. According to him, the new bombings will be much more large-scale and intense than before.
If we assume that Iran agrees to implement the agreements reached, which is probably a big assumption, then the already legendary epic rage will come to an end.
Well, it looks like we'll have to stock up on popcorn again. The series continues. Zelensky and Ukraine are turning the Caucasus around. The meeting with Pashinyan and the recent one with Aliyev speak volumes. The Caucasus is turning away from Russia and looking toward Europe. Here are the details. A geopolitical shift. Armenia, which for decades depended on the Kremlin for security, is today hosting leaders from all over Europe. The first ever bilateral EU-Armenia summit took place in Yerevan. This event followed the 8th summit of the European Political Community, which was held in the country. For that introduction, I'd like to thank you and President Kasta for the very kind invitation to this summit. The EU summit in Yerevan demonstrates that the European security model is replacing ineffective structures like the CSTO. The post-Soviet space has ceased to be an internal matter for the Kremlin.
Clearly, after the last Armenian-Azerbaijani war occurred, clearly after that, it became clear to everyone in Armenia that Russia is ready to give up Armenia without any particular problems and won't do anything for it. And this marked Armenia's turn toward the West, toward Europe. And the European Community Summit is, as it were, evidence of such a vector of development for Armenia in the near future.
Volodymyr Zelensky's presence at the summit and direct participation in the event is a clear declaration that the era of Russian dominance in the Caucasus is over and the Kremlin's old methods of control no longer work. The president of Ukraine also held a meeting with Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan.
It's clear that Armenia is now more oriented toward Europe, which is a partner of Ukraine, than toward Russia. Therefore, in principle, it is even ready to go so far as to invite the president of Ukraine to Armenia, which in Russia itself was perceived by many as a kind of spit, a slap in the face to their imperial greatness. But various Z propagandists and so-called military correspondents, of course, were raving. They fiercely demanded that the Russian peacekeepers in Gyumri, and there are 5,000 of them there, immediately attack Zelensky and take him prisoner, and all that sort of thing. Well, naturally, this is all not serious. Well, and this is a blow. Well, they obviously won't acknowledge it publicly.
Russian influence in the South Caucasus is rapidly falling. The Kremlin is losing its status as a key player, and the region is actively pivoting to new allies.
A region where it has been present for quite a long time, ever since the days of Peter the Great. They tried to establish control over this region. But now it turns out that their influence there is rapidly falling, and it's falling both even among states that are hostile to each other, such as Armenia and Azerbaijan.
Let's recall that on April 25th, Volodymyr Zelensky made his first visit to Azerbaijan since the full-scale war began. The parties solidified agreements in the fields of security, energy, and the defense industrial complex.
Even before the period of the full-scale invasion, there was cooperation. After the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, it only intensified. Ukraine has always recognized the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan has always recognized the territorial integrity and sovereignty of Ukraine. And now possibilities for military, technical, and other cooperation with Azerbaijan are being discussed quite actively. For Ukraine, Azerbaijan is a potentially very important partner, just as Ukraine is for Azerbaijan.
Relations between Azerbaijan and Russia are in a state of a deep crisis of trust. Volodymyr Zelensky's visit became a powerful catalyst for this deterioration, although tension had been building for years.
We see how relations between Azerbaijan and Russia are currently deteriorating. And even though Russia offered apologies and compensation for the downed plane, and Azerbaijan accepted it all, it can't be said that this immediately restored relations to their former level. That is, Azerbaijan is clearly moving away from Russia. It's clearly looking towards new partners.
Russia's status as a great power is a thing of the past. Today, the Kremlin is merely a secondary participant in global processes, forced to adapt to realities over which it no longer has any real influence. Sewage lakes, broken roads, and a garbage dump. No, this isn't a horror movie, this is Luhansk. This is how it's improved since Russia arrived. Residents of Luhansk showed all this trash on social media. It's reported that for over 3 months, the yard has been drowning in feces while utility rates continue to rise. Well, what can I say? Everywhere Russia sets foot, complete devastation and chaos follow. But despite all this, they'll start mining gold in the so-called LPR. Local social media says that exploration of the Bobrikovo deposit in the Anthracite district will soon begin. After the expert review and project approval, they will proceed to the actual mining. Media reports mention structures linked to Moscow enterprises, Alchevsk Prom Group as the investor. So what do you think of this news? I find it funny. Austria is throwing out Russian spies who are hiding behind their diplomatic status. The Russian embassy in Vienna installed equipment on its roof that allowed the Kremlin to intercept secret data from international organizations. Details of the scandal next.
Austria is clearing out a network of Russian spies. Authorities stated that diplomats in Vienna used the so-called forest of antennas to gather necessary information for Mother Russia. The interceptors were not only on the embassy building, but also on rooftops in the Donaustadt district, where diplomats live with their families. The country's authorities accused 3 Russians, employees of the diplomatic mission, of spying. Their names are not disclosed, but they have reportedly already left the country, according to the public broadcaster ORF.
According to ORF, the Russian ambassador was summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in April regarding the diplomats' activities. The Russian side was asked to waive their diplomatic immunity so that prosecutors could conduct an investigation. However, they refused, which led to the expulsion, ORF reports. As noted, they have already left Austria.
The Russian embassy in Austria reacted hysterically to this news on its social networks. The comment makes it clear that the list of personae non gratae included, among others, members of the permanent mission to the OSCE, the very one whose delegates closely monitored the ceasefire by Ukraine and Russia in Donbass starting from 2014.
We consider this latest unfriendly step by the Austrian authorities to be unjustified, purely politically motivated, and categorically unacceptable. As in previous similar cases, no evidence has been presented to us, let alone proof of alleged violations of the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations. A harsh reaction from Moscow to these absolutely thoughtless actions by the Austrian side will certainly follow. Full responsibility for the further deterioration of bilateral relations, already at their lowest level in modern history, lies entirely with Vienna.
This group of Russians expelled from Austria has updated the list of those accused of espionage. Since 2020, a total of 14 Kremlin agents have been added to it. The largest spy scandal involves a former employee of Austrian counterintelligence, Egisto Ott. He was detained in 2024. Intelligence services established that OT managed a network of undercover Russian agents, sent government phones and secure laptops to Moscow, and tracked Putin's opponents in Europe. OT is linked to Jan Marsalek, who fled to Moscow and is the former head of a bankrupt German payment company. After OT's arrest, Austria, which previously maintained neutrality, changed its course to toughen the fight against spies. Even Russian propagandists were caught in the crossfire, which of course caused an absolute uproar.
If the policy of pushing out Russian journalists is not reconsidered, retaliatory measures from the Russian side will be inevitable and will follow. And don't say later that it's like Russia expelling an Austrian journalist. No. It is Austria that expels Russian journalists, persecutes them, and prevents them from working on a systematic basis, repeating this same trick every time. Russia will react to this if they don't come to their senses once again.
After other European countries began kicking out Russian agents, many of them found a safe haven in Austria. It seems that this shop is also closing for the Russians. The Austrian government increasingly admits it's time to change laws and crack down harder on spies. Has he really changed his tune? Just listen to this. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico announced he will visit Moscow on May 9th and meet with Russian ruler Vladimir Putin. But at the same time, he will not participate in the military parade for Victory Day. What made Fico change his mind and who? Who is actually behind all of this? All the details are in the report. Has the old friendship really cracked and is Putin losing his key allies? Just the other day, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico made his close friend, Russian dictator Putin, feel quite nervous. After an unexpected meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Yerevan, Fico stated he'd visit Moscow on May 9th to meet Russian dictator Vladimir Putin, but won't attend the Victory Day military parade. He announced that he only plans to lay flowers at the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Regarding the visit to Moscow, again, there is no more of that aggressive rhetoric. So he says that yes, he will go and meet Putin, but he will not take part in the parade.
I will lay flowers on the grave of the unknown Red Army soldier to thank them for the liberation on behalf of all Slovaks. And I have a short meeting scheduled with President Putin. That is all. I will not attend any military parade.
At the same time, Fico defended his decision to go to Russia, which was previously condemned by the European Commission.
I will not allow myself to be driven into a situation where I would have any pangs of conscience.
I meet with Putin and everyone criticizes me. But when I return after meeting him in the corridors of Brussels, even in the restrooms, everyone asks me what he said.
Although just last week, Putin's aide Yuri Ushakov assured everyone that the Slovak Prime Minister would be at the parade on May 9th. Ushakov confirmed that Fico, among other foreign guests, would be at the Victory Parade in Moscow.
Political analyst Petro Oleszczuk is certain. Most likely it wasn't Fico's plans that changed, but the Kremlin's.
Besides Fico, no one else was planning to go to Moscow at that time. I can assume that the Kremlin itself didn't really want Fico to be present specifically at the parade because, well, it would look strange. Last year there were a large number of various world leaders, including the leader of China. And today it's just Fico, and it's like, so what? And what is that supposed to demonstrate? A decline in authority, like in prestige.
And Fico himself wasn't actually that eager to attend the parade either.
He's fully aware of the serious threats associated with holding this parade and how the Russian leadership is worried about the security of the event. And obviously Fico doesn't need any of that.
Today, Fico is trying to have it both ways after the weakening of his ally Viktor Orban's position in Hungary.
Fico has now clearly found himself in a rather specific situation where he's perceived by everyone as the most pro-Russian leader of a European country. And he's apparently not very comfortable in that role, because before, Orban took all the heat, constantly making pro-Russian statements, while Fico simply joined him. So he wasn't the main target, he got certain benefits from Russia, while Orban took the brunt of the criticism. And Fico was obviously very, very comfortable with that.
At the same time, analysts note Fico's attempts to shift toward a more moderate policy.
Because he just wants to make money with the Russians, wants to get some benefits and preferences from them, but he absolutely doesn't want to deal with all the attention from detractors and those who dislike both Putin and Russia. That's why he's trying to maneuver, at least for a while. His rhetoric will likely become somewhat less radical in nature, and he will probably make fewer overtly pro-Russian statements in public, instead waiting to see how the situation develops further.
Interestingly, on top of everything else, Fico has changed his position and rhetoric, not only regarding the parade, but also toward Ukraine.
Lately, he's made several statements that, well, aren't anti-Ukrainian, but are even favorable toward Ukraine. In particular, he no longer objects to Ukraine joining the European Union. At the same time, Fico hasn't changed at all. He remains the same unprincipled pro-Russian politician he's always been, but he's always been more cautious, especially since he sees exactly what's happening to Orban. He understands that there will be threats to his political future as well. Many are now saying that Fico plans to hold early parliamentary elections. Perhaps, again, he just doesn't want to cause too many scandals regarding all these issues right now, and simply wants to quietly prepare for early elections and stay in power.
Trying to have his cake and eat it too? Here is a story of cunning, a scheme that goes beyond the borders of the country. And no, this story is not about some Ukrainian official, but about the Poles. Poland wants to build a road to Lviv. We're talking about a toll road, 80 kilometers long, from Lviv to the Polish border. The idea is not bad. It will significantly improve the connection between the countries. This investment will be carried out as part of the post-war reconstruction of Ukraine. But Warsaw views the infrastructure project as more than just aid. The Polish publication Forsal writes that Poland will collect the road tolls into its own budget.
The construction of the highway from the border to Lviv will not be just a gift. The Polish side will charge a toll for travel for many years. The publication recalled that Poland insisted on building the highway for Euro 2012. At that time, Ukraine did not have enough funds for this. A framework agreement between Poland and Ukraine may be signed during the Rebuilding Ukraine conference, which will take place on June 25th and 26th in Gdansk. If the project is implemented as planned, it will become one of the first important examples of Poland's participation in the reconstruction of Ukraine's infrastructure.
But it's not just highways. The publication RMF24 writes that Poland will create a railway line in Ukraine with a European gauge, a cargo terminal in central Ukraine, and a Polish port on the Black Sea. Well, the ideas are, let's say, interesting. As for the road, it seems somewhat logical. They invest and they earn, but then don't present it as reconstruction aid. And what do you think about all this? Write to us. That's all for now. Give this video a like. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel Ukraine Today so you don't miss the next episodes. See you soon.